Welcome to Mental Health in Focus, brought to you by Flow Vector Systems. We're passionate technologists dedicated to helping businesses get started and thrive with AI integrated solutions. Find flow state in your business. Now let's move on with the podcast.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. And we have Christine on the call today. Christine is in the mental health space and is going to tell us a little bit about herself and her practice, and we'll jump into the call. So welcome, Christine. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me. My name is Christine Conti. I'm a licensed professional counselor. I have a physical practice in Charleston, South Carolina, but I also have some virtual options in Ohio and New Jersey. So with my practice, Phoenix Counseling, what I wanted to do is incorporate some holistic approaches, energy healing, as well as having a space where there's multiple therapists, each offering a different kind of therapeutic approach so we can service the most people in the Charleston area. I myself am solution focus oriented and incorporate a lot of mindfulness, CBT in kind of what I do. And I have other therapists who work with me who kind of align with that, as well as DBT and ACT and other modalities as well.
Great.
It's pretty much sums it up for Phoenix. Just trying to help as many people as possible in the Charleston area.
That's awesome. I love that you have so many different modalities and abilities to work with people. I know access to mental health care can be a challenge, and so appreciate all those different angles you have, and your focus on Charleston. Sounds like you kind of love the Charleston area.
Well, I ended up opening up a practice there, but I myself am so the therapists who work with me, they're primarily licensed in Charleston, but I'm kind of open to meeting people where they're at, and if a client has moved, I started my career in New Jersey. So I still see clients virtually in New Jersey and have ventured out into other areas kind of when the need arises.
That's great. That's great. All right. So real quick, sort of why did you get into the mental health care space? What kind of pushed
So I
you there?
kind of had a different route than most people. It was ironic because when I was in high school, the guidance department had all seniors take this personality test, and mine came up that I should be a counselor, and I was like, I don't want to do that. I want to do like business. And
right.
So initially my career started in the Air Force. I served for 10 years, and I had a lot of airmen who worked for me who kept saying, I wish I had a guidance counselor like you. And so when the time arose, I became a guidance counselor. And then realized I really enjoyed the counseling aspect and talking to people and like giving them tools to help them manage, whatever their stress or anxiety might be impacting them. So I became a licensed professional counselor. So it was a little bit different than a lot of people. It just it found me. The universe took me a while to get. I was a little stubborn, but I got there, and I really have found kind of like my passion and really enjoy helping people.
I love it. And thank you for your service. Appreciate that. And it sounds like it was foretold that you would become a counselor, and that's amazing.
Those personality tests, they really it really work.
Apparently they work. Yeah. Okay. Great. Let's kind of move forward a little bit. As part of my personal journey, when I was first struggling with mental health, I was reaching out. I was trying to find the right way to get help, and I thought I need a psychiatrist. Yeah. So I started making calls, and they're like, "Yeah, I'll meet you in 3 to 6 months." And I'm like, I'm kind of struggling right now, and and I didn't know who to go to, right? So I kind of just stayed with this. I'm like, all right, I'll just hang on until I finally get to talk to this person. And I talk to this person, and they are like, well, what medication do you take, and how can I help you with that medication? This is not what I was looking for. So
and I just wasted 3 months.
Exactly.
So I think that's a common, and also a lot of people. So there's So psychiatrists are prescribers. You can, if you look hard enough, find someone who does still do, the hour-long session. But most of them, it's getting you on medication, and then work with your therapist or psychologist to manage any of the talk therapy. So if you're really looking to talk about, whether it's a mental illness or even just life stresses or grief or, some event that took place, working with a therapist or a psychologist is probably the best way to go. Unfortunately, with the industry as it is right now, I'm one of the, I feel like sometimes I'm a unicorn. I still take insurance. I think it's that intrinsic, service type mentality. But unfortunately, the insurance industry hasn't really kept up with reimbursement and whatnot. So more and more therapists, and it's just getting paid, and then they do clawback. So more and more therapists are doing self-pay only. So it can be challenging. There's a lot of platforms out there that people can go to find a therapist, or Psychology Today, where a lot of therapists will kind of advertise and whatnot. If you have insurance and you're looking to use that route, finding who is who your insurance provider is in network within your area is usually the best way to go.
Yeah, that's great. And I know that even going that route, it's difficult sometimes to find someone who has availability. And so,
right.
I know that when I was in treatment, I was given a list of people that were on, that were supported from my insurance, and
right. And they're all full.
They're all full. I called 5 or 6 of them. They're all full, and they were sort of pushing me to find somebody in person that you can go to, right? And they were kind of pushing away on the online services, and I think that was a mistake. Personally, I think if someone who's struggling with mental health is banging their head against the wall trying to get in to see someone in person, they need help now, and online can be a great alternative, and I think it can be very effective. And if you really want to see someone in person, that's great, but maybe look at that as the next step, right? You don't marry the person you're talking to online, right? So you can see someone for a little bit and then move on to someone else.
That's so there's so many points you made right there, and it's kind of true. I always tell one of the first, I'm like, look, it's like dating, you have to find the right fit, and you don't, but a lot of people do stick with someone, or they're like, this was a bad experience, and they don't they don't continue to find someone who is the right fit. Kind of to piggyback on what you said about online therapy, it's interesting, during COVID, when everything went from in-person to online, I actually found that it can be just as effective, if not more. You're in your own environment. As long as you feel like you can get privacy, you're more vulnerable, you're more willing to open up. So, I think that's probably a good thing, because again, more and more of my peers are not having a physical practice just because of the overhead and stuff. So finding someone in person, like you said, can be really challenging. And it's really, I know we had talked briefly about kind of AI therapy, and it's very accessible, but finding one that's actually been developed by a mental health provider, it can also be really, it could be helpful to some people, but it could also be, it's not regulated, so it's not necessarily the best option for people. So you're absolutely right. If you can find a therapist, an experienced therapist who does telehealth, there really is no different. It's a lot of in person. It's about those nonverbals, reading your body language, noticing the subtle changes in tone of voice, and hesitation and whatnot. And you can do all of that if you're paying attention online.
Yeah, that's great. I know I've had some good experiences online, and so
Yeah.
I would definitely recommend people, at least start there, and and find your way, because you don't want to wait weeks and weeks before you see someone. Like, if you decide you need to see someone, see someone.
We live in a really busy, hectic society, and so sometimes just the logistics of leaving your office, getting somewhere, and then getting back and fighting traffic, that can cause an obstacle in providing effective therapy, because you're not relaxed in the session.
Yeah.
But even if you're just, okay, I'm going to go to the parking lot in my office, and like I'm going to sit in my car, you're more relaxed and more open in that, because you're not thinking about like the next thing. You're able to just focus on what you're doing right now. So you're right, like online therapy can be really, don't wait for the in-person if you can't get it.
Right. Yeah. And then real quick, and then we'll move on to sort of the next topic. Services, I want to say, is it 8? What's the dial-in line that's not 911, but it's for mental health care?
Oh my God, if you hadn't asked me, I would know it off the top of my head. There are hotlines. Every state has their own hotline as well. There's also like texting that you can do. So there's a lot of nonprofits, as well. There's also, you can call like like your local police department. Sometimes they have, or your county will have it. So I want to say it's kind of different for each area. There isn't necessarily a 911. There's 800 numbers. I think you're thinking of like 988, but I think that's it. But there's every state, every county has like their own on staff trained person who can help you with crisis.
Yeah.
And sometimes those are better, because if you are really in crisis and they need to send someone, then it's a little bit more accessible.
Yeah. And maybe how would you feel about someone who is struggling mentally, and there's like suicide hotlines that are out there, and maybe they're not feeling quite suicidal, but they're just completely overwhelmed, having panic attacks, looking for help. I mean, like you said, there's a number of different ways you could reach out, but maybe even a suicide hotline, any way to like get a hold of someone who could redirect you to the right service.
Whether it's suicide or just like a crisis hotline.
Yeah.
I think sometimes people are like, well, I'm not suicidal, so I don't need to call the suicide, but a crisis hotline can also help. So finding what there's, again, like it's best to look at whatever county you live in, and you just Google crisis hotline in this area.
That's great.
Some counties even will have mobile crisis that they'll come to your home if you're really, but those are more like higher tier. If you're just, struggling.
Yeah. Probably just need someone to talk to and like, get started. Yeah. Okay, great. Well, thanks. Let's move on to the next topic. I think from a therapeutic perspective, what are some of the things, some of the trends, some of the methodologies that you see are working really well, and then maybe just mention a couple that maybe don't work so well. And that could be anything from like trying to Google something for yourself, or asking ChatGPT for help, or
I'm
or
like,
just getting it.
Okay, yeah. So I would say like you're not talking like in office like what I'm seeing, but like obviously there has been more and more people that are turning to online and saying I'm not feeling it. So ChatGPT might pop up right away. It's interesting, like preparing for this, we had talked about AI, and I was like, okay, let me, Google some of this stuff, and some of the really knowing who developed it, I think is important.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a whole lot of regulation, and a lot of them, the caveat is coaching. And so they present as, oh, we can help you with your mental health, but they're a coach. So there's not as much oversight in that. One of the things I noticed, there was one site that kept coming up, and when I went to it, it said, oh yeah, we're not continuing. And so for someone who, yeah, exactly. I was like, wow, if I've developed this attachment to this AI and now you shut it down, like that's equivalent, what is for me, if I were to move away, I have to, have ethical to find continuity of care and provide you other resources. Like what happens when chat GPT, you can't access the internet or whatever, now you're stuck.
Yeah.
So although the trend, I think that more and more people, are hearing about, oh, I had a great experience with this app or whatever. I still think that finding a person who has been trained is always going to be a necessity for people who are truly struggling.
Yeah.
If you're having a fight with a friend, then going to one of the there's also some other frustrations that I saw with some of these platforms where, pretending to be someone, I'm like chatting, putting it in the chat, and then all of a sudden it's like, if you want to continue, pay.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's kind of, I'm getting somewhere here, but now you're telling me to pay. So
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if there's maybe something from an industry perspective that could be done to, when someone's asking the type of questions that sound like someone who's struggling and needs help, maybe have the AI smart enough to redirect them to a local service rather than trying to understand their problem and give suggestions for how to solve it online.
Right. One of the biggest things that I kept reading in all the research too was like the nuances of things,
Mm-hmm.
And being able to kind of really tell if someone was in crisis, like or someone is, is it a colloquialism there? Oh, I'm gonna, but it's not, it's again, a therapist is going to further explore that and, work with you in creating a safety plan versus programming something. If you hear this phrase, call 911.
Yeah,
Because AI is only as good as its programming.
exactly.
And that was one of the biggest issues is, it's basically trying to predict based on averages. And there's and I noticed a lot of these were international, apps, like they can, and depending on what region you are in, even in the United States, there's different, cultural norms and stuff that, now you're asking an app to predict, future behavior, or is this considered, anxiety or whatever. That's, we will probably eventually get there, but we're not there yet.
Yeah.
And so right now and in the foreseeable future, if you're having a crisis, maybe finding a person virtually or in person is a better way to go.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about challenges in running your own business. We talked about insurance a little bit. Outside of insurance, what are some of the other sort of challenges that you face running, a clinic or multiple business types in
There's
this mental
actually,
health space?
I think there's more challenges than one would think. There's
okay.
a lot of, different expenses, liability insurance and all the different types of liability insurance. If you have strong internet and you're doing telehealth, does your client have strong internet? What happens when there's a glitch? Or what happens when, the service isn't what? So these are all can be really big obstacles to provide effective care. Because if you as the therapist are worried about like marketing and is my caseload full and all of the overhead, and then what is the right way to do payroll,
Mm-hmm.
and how much do you what's fair compensation, to have a therapist working for you or under you and stuff. So it's these challenges, I think, are making it more challenging for people to have a private practice and actually make it affordable.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially with the, I think I heard something about the insurance rates haven't updated for a decade, maybe more.
Yeah. I mean, they're definitely, I heard, I was in a conference and someone had said that, and then I Googled, what the rates were, 10, 20, I said 20 years ago. And it was basically the same that I'm getting paid today.
Yeah.
But then there's fluctuation depending on what state you live in, and, then how you've negotiated the contract. And then there's all of these larger platforms that have come out, Headway and Alma, and how they compensate, and the difficulties in those, because they don't have customer service. You have to email and wait 2 weeks to hear back. So if there's any it can be really very challenging and frustrating for the therapist to try and navigate all these things.
So you've got multiple legs of ways that people may utilize your services. So maybe through Headway, maybe through insurance, maybe through self-pay. Is there any other channel coming in that you're looking at?
You can try and contract or get grant, whatever, but that is another element that I personally have not tackled. I briefly considered it, but the compensation for those it's more volume. And so then it's okay, then the quality is going to go down, because now, you're going to be giving me a higher volume, but I can't afford to hire someone to meet that volume. And so now we're going to have shorter sessions. And even with that, some of the, like Medicaid and Medicare people don't want to tackle that beast because of the audit, and that goes in the notes requirement, and the notes can take just as much time as a session. And so you got to couple that into your reimbursement. So if the insurance is not paying what is really market value, then more. It's also can be very draining holding the space for people.
Right.
So there's a lot of turnover.
Yeah, I can imagine. You're just scratching the surface, I'm sure, but there's a number of challenges to work through to maintain a business like this. So I imagine it takes some real passion to stay with it, right? Passion
and commitment. Yeah,
that's great. Well, let's maybe talk a little bit about where you're leading your practice into the future. What's sort of some of your ambitions, and sort of how do you track growth for your company?
So it's interesting timing wise. We're in the middle of restructuring, and so that question, because of all of the challenge we talked about, and just the fact that what paying compensation for therapists and all the overhead that goes with it, and so I think more and more people are doing more of a collaborative approach where it's independent people kind of working together and sharing that overhead. That I think seems to be more what I've some people are making it work, but other just the cost of marketing and finding the right administration team is key, unless you yourself are going to maybe see that fewer clients and do that administration piece. But to carry a full caseload and do the business end of things,
tough.
Yeah.
Well, you just set me up for the perfect segue, because everything you just said about marketing and business administration, and sort of having enough time to work with your clients is the problem I'm trying to solve. And so like I said at the beginning of the call, I work in AI. And just this last week, I was at an event show conference, which was basically working with those folks to say, hey, I can help you with your marketing. I can help you with, your business administration through automation. And mental health care is like passion area for me right now. And so, the event show was an opportunity. What we're talking about right now is exactly what I want to do. And so, I completely understand the challenges that are happening for you there on the back end. And my whole goal is to free people up to go spend more time with customers, to spend more time thinking about their strategy and their growth. And I say customers, clients, folks who need help, right? And the thing that really drives your passion, I'm sure putting together marketing campaigns and running through spreadsheets and typing in notes and all these things, these are not your passion area, right? I want to take all that stuff and compress it and automate it so that you could spend more time with your clients, right? And that's where you're going to make money and find the most value. So you set me up perfectly there. I appreciate it.
Glad to help.
And so yeah, I think that's going to be a problem for most people in this business, especially running their own practices. Is just the overwhelming load of running the business, getting in the way of doing what you really want to do, which is help people. So yeah. So with that, I would love to help you out as you're thinking about restructuring. If there's anything I can do to help. Like I said, it's a passion area for me. I'm trying to give back to the mental health care community. And so, please let me know.
Yeah, I'd love to hear. I kind of set you up a little bit. What exactly, the marketing piece obviously is huge.
Yeah.
And how can AI help someone with, because you're exactly right. Like, I would rather focus my energy on evidence-based practices versus what the latest SEO is on Meta, right? And what campaign should I be coming up with? And they'll let me find, is it a video? And how many videos do you do in a day? And how many posts do you do? Like, so if AI is something that could automate that and be consistent with it, because that's one of the issues I found with hiring a marketing person is it seems great in the beginning, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, you're not posting anymore.
Especially I know that I work with a nonprofit organization for mountain biking trails in the San Luis Obispo area in California. So we recently hired someone to do some work for marketing and all the different social media programs and everything. And it's really boosted the organization. It's been great. But I also know that a lot of that can be automated. The board consists of a number of elderly folks who are not super excited about AI and leveraging it for that. So I can imagine leaning on a person. A lot of people are still doing that, but AI is absolutely capable of doing everything you just mentioned. It just takes understanding how to use it, how to prompt it, which different tools to stitch together to produce the content, to produce the videos, to send it on a regular basis, to sort of tweak whatever you need to tweak on a regular basis depending on whatever's happening. And so those are things that I really like to work on.
Yeah, that could be, I can see that being a game changer for a lot of small private practices that are, more than one person. Yeah,
exactly. Okay. Well, I would love to talk more with you about that. Maybe we can set up a half hour or an hour sometime in the next week and just kind of dig on that and see if there's something we can help out with.
Sounds great.
Okay. So I appreciate your time, and I look forward to speaking with you again. I'll send you an email follow up with a summary of this call, and then we'll maybe set up some time to talk about your restructuring and how I might be able to help.
All right. Well, you have a nice day.
You too. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.